That's some video of a herd of elk prancing through the waters of Pyramid Lake outside Jasper. The amazing natural scene was recorded by Sharon Chodirker and her husband Chaim on Monday, July 22nd, at the start of their vacation to celebrate their 29th wedding anniversary. The sky was a bit smoky, but locals told them it was nothing to worry about. It's always hazy there during summer forest fire season. Hours later, though, when the Toronto couple was eating dinner in Jasper, they saw a gray wall of smoke block out the sky, and then each of them got an emergency alert message on their cell phones from the government. Evacuate Jasper within 3 hours due to an oncoming pair of forest fires converging on the town. The couple went back to their hotel, threw everything into their rental car, and joined tens of thousands of tourists like them, plus local residents and workers, and fled. How they got out, where they slept, and what it was like as smoke and ash rained down is a story they feel lucky they can tell, because only 2 days later, the massive fires reached Jasper's south end and devoured 1/3 of the buildings in the town, including right where they'd been staying, part of their hotel. Emergency officials say the fires in the town are out, but those surrounding it are likely to keep burning for another 3 months. The Toronto couple realizes their cancelled excursions are nothing compared to what full-time residents of Jasper are facing.
And you know, the idea that Jasper hasn't had to have an evacuation of any kind, nothing like this in a century. So, you know, they're used to smoke and to telling stories and having scares, but I don't think anybody thought this was going to happen.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Wednesday, August the 7th, 2024. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News. For Sharon Chodirker and her husband, Dr. Chaim, escaping Jasper's forest fires was a harrowing experience, including driving through smoke without cell phone service and no accommodation to be found, leaving them sleeping in their car one night, 122 kilometers away from Jasper, in a parking lot of a hotel in Valemount, BC. The couple managed to find places to stay in other parts of the Rockies, including Kamloops, until Friday when, as they'd previously scheduled, they headed east to Canmore, Alberta, and spent Shabbat with a Chabad rabbi and his family who had just established a new Jewish community center there. And we'll hear from Rabbi David Pinson later, and also from the head of the Jewish community in Kamloops, BC, Heidi Coleman. But first, I'm joined by evacuees Sharon Chodirker and Chaim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when you landed in Alberta, did you already know there was forest fires happening, and what precautions or whatever or worries did that give you?
I feel like we knew that it happens every year and there's always a danger of that, but we didn't suspect. It seemed fine. So we just kind of went on with our plans.
We were following the situation in terms of air quality and where the fires were. There were some that were in other places, but not necessarily where we were going. On the drive up from Canmore to Jasper, we noticed that the air quality at some places was a bit hazy, that it obscured some of the views and the vistas. It was not as sharp as you would expect for some of the mountains, especially in the evening. But in no time when we were there even did they discuss it. And interestingly, this is sort of the cognitive bias that people have, where many of the people there, even to the time when we were evacuated from Jasper, they had said that this is Alberta in the summer. We always see forest fires. We're used to it. And Jasper has never been evacuated before.
Yeah, to the point where one person even was talking to somebody and said, "Oh, we're used to this. Look, just you could tell the smoke was getting worse outside." But she said, "Oh, it makes for a good story. This happens every year. It makes for a good story to tell our customers or the people around us."
So where were you staying in Jasper? And then what happened the night Tell me what day you got the knock on the door type of thing.
We got there on the Sunday night, which is Sunday, I think it was 21st of July. And we got there, and it was about 35, 36 degrees Celsius. We were staying in a lodge called the Takara Lodge, which is about a kilometer south of the town. We went there the next day. It was still a little bit hazy, but we were able to move around. It didn't seem as bad as the smoke that we experienced even here in Toronto last summer with forest fires. So it certainly wasn't at that time as bad as that. And then we had a very nice day. We went to Athabasca Falls. We toured around many of the sites around Jasper National Park.
And we found out later that Athabasca Falls had one of the first, well, I don't know about first, but had fires there from the lightning, because it was a perfect storm of windstorm, hot weather, which they're not used to having, and lightning. So lightning hit Athabasca the day we were there, just after we were there, and caused a fire there.
And luckily, just when we were coming back from Athabasca Falls, we were actually low on gas. So we happened to look to see where we were going out for dinner. And again, the air quality wasn't really bad at that point. So we went back, we filled up with gas, and we just went to our lodge hotel. We were sitting, having drinks, listening to some music on the patio. And then all of a sudden, at about 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Nobody had any inkling of what was coming just in a few hours.
A big wind then came, all of a sudden, and then everybody ran into the restaurant. And then from there, thunder, and then we left to go to our dinner. We had dinner reservations in the town. We decided to drive. We drove there, and while we were there in the town, it was as if a curtain of smoke was moving towards the town.
We could see it outside. We looked out, and every time we looked outside, it looked worse and worse. And even just getting there, we realized it was smelling a little bit like fire. We still didn't really know anything.
And you couldn't really see a blue sky. You couldn't really see the sun. You couldn't see that it was cloudy or anything. Again, the people there, and it's not their fault, but the people there were just saying, these are forest fires. This is what happens here.
People started coming in and saying there's ash falling.
And then we got into our car, and when we got into our car, a woman rolled down her window, or the window came down in a pickup truck. And at the same time, we saw there was a lineup of maybe 50 to 75 cars at the gas station.
She basically said there's 85% chance of evacuation. She must have been a local. She just yelled it out the window.
And still, we don't know what that means. What does evacuation mean? Where do you go? Who's in charge and such? Fortunately, as I said, we had filled up our tank with gas. We got to the hotel, it's like a ghost town. The door to the main lodge is open. No one is around.
We didn't know that there was no power until we went into pack. And by the time we went into pack, we had already gotten kind of the amber type alert on our phones. Both of us, evacuation of Jasper. Yeah, and just followed lineups. There was only one way to get out, so we followed thousands and thousands of other people going out. You can imagine it was at a snail pace.
The highway north was cut off, the highway east was cut off, and the highway south was cut off. And so we all went west. The problem is that it's in the mountains and there's no cell phone reception. So when you're going, you don't really know. And of course, we don't have a map.
Well, and we're just kind of going. We don't know where we're going, right? We were supposed to be there for another 3 nights. We don't know where we're going. And it's thousands of people. And we just kind of got out of there and followed everybody until we got tired and decided to stop at a hotel just to see if by some miracle they have a room, which of course they didn't. And then we just decided, we found like one of the last spots in the parking lot and just decided to sleep there. So we just kind of slept in our car.
This was in Valemount, BC. This is where a lot of the displaced Jasper people were going to. They were Absolutely tremendous hospitality you can imagine they were completely overwhelmed in these small towns.
Yeah, I think people just got really scared. We were very calm, but I'm sure there were a lot of people who were very scared.
Where did you get food?
When we were in Calgary, we go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. We bring a cooler, and so we had a lot of food with us, cheese and all sorts of fruits and things that we were able to eat.
Are you kosher?
Yes.
You haven't slept in a hotel bed. You're in a car, and then why did you keep going?
So we had reservations in Lake Louise in a few days.
Right. So we needed a few nights of somewhere to stay. So through a friend who helped us, we got reservations. We were able to find a place in
Kamloops at Sun Peaks Resort, which is a ski resort. But the idea was that, and some people even went that far because the communication was that you didn't know how far to drive. How far do you need to get away from the forest fire? No one knew. And so they just kept driving.
Yeah, we know people who drove 15 hours. I mean, we drove a lot, but we certainly didn't drive 15 hours more.
Not that night.
The scariest part was the first day and 24 hours. At any point, did you feel that you were unsafe?
No, because I think they put out that alert so early and in time that, we didn't see flames. We did see the ashes were coming down on our clothes and on our things, but it wasn't like overwhelming. And, we were in Sun Peaks, and we were talking to people who had a restaurant and a home. And I mean, for us, it was a minor inconvenience. For others, they didn't even know if their home was still standing, if their businesses were still standing. I mean, yeah, just minor inconvenience for us is terrible for other people.
It's a terrible, terrible situation because we packed up the stuff that we had in suitcases because we were traveling. They're packing up their life possessions. And not to mention, there's so many people that come to Jasper from all over the world, young adults who are there without cars. They're there for the summer, or they're for a year, and they're working. But Ellen, you asked if we felt unsafe. It certainly wasn't the visions that you see from Fort McMurray's evacuation.
We had that in our minds, though, the highways with the flames on the sides of the highways that you saw on the news back then for the Fort McMurray fire. I mean, that was in my mind. Luckily, we didn't see that. We did see areas, like I said, with, smoke and other things, but...
Interestingly, while we were in BC, we saw also evidence of other forest fires that were happening in the various places that we passed along the way. From Kamloops south, and when we went around, it was really striking to see the extent of it, which we're not necessarily used to.
Then you got to the Chabad house in Canmore at the end, and what a story you had to tell.
What a story we had, and they were amazing and hospitable, and anybody going out west, go to Canmore Chabad and go visit them. They're amazing.
I have to say, this has given me a fresh look or a different take and respect for fires and forest fires and the environment, and an understanding of how quickly things can change in the blink of an eye.
And 200 to 300 foot flames. That's what these the people putting out the fires were trying to extinguish. I mean, impossible, to the point where they were told to leave. Like, they couldn't.
Did you get your money back?
Yeah, they didn't charge us.
I don't know how that works, but we have 2 excursions too that we have not. We haven't even tried, to be honest. So whatever happens, you kind of like, you've left with your life. You're healthy, and you just kind of whatever. If we hear about it, that would be great. But if not, that'll be a little donation there in itself.
Chabad in the Rockies has been open only for a few months. Rabbi David Pinson and his wife and 5 children have been busy establishing the new center in the Rockies. It's about 20 minutes from Banff, the gateway to the area. The Pinsons moved down there from Edmonton. They're expecting to serve as a hub for the many Jewish tourists vacationing in the region, but also attracting the scattered local Jewish residents. The Pinsons also opened a kosher kitchen to cater destination weddings, bar mitzvahs, and conventions. When his phone rang at 11 o'clock one recent night, Rabbi Pinson heard from a stranded American couple fleeing from another forest fire, this one in Golden, BC, who had no place to sleep. Well, it's a pleasure to speak to you because, unfortunately, the province is going through a natural disaster, but you're doing mitzvahs. And so we want to hear how the Jasper and area fires actually showed up on your doorstep, not once, but twice. Take me back to the first time when you heard about people in distress.
We are located in the Bow Valley. Thank God the Bow Valley has not had any physical fires. We had a lot of smoke and ash, but the evacuations, when we started to hear the evacuations, the Jasper population and visitors couldn't come down to Banff because the 93 was closed. They had to go, for the most part, only west, only into BC, and then go all the way around. It was like an 8-9 hour journey for them to get from Jasper to Banff. Then in Yoho National Park, the town of Golden was evacuated as well. And at around 10:30 at night on Wednesday, we got a phone call from a traveler we've been in touch with, a Jewish traveler, their couple on their honeymoon. And they got a knock on their door a few minutes earlier, told that they have to grab their things and get out of the hotel and head somewhere, but they can't stay there. So they grabbed their stuff, they got into the car, they started to look for hotels, and everything is booked, and they weren't sure what they were going to do. So they called us, and they were wondering if we knew a place where they could stay for the night until they figure things out. And, you know, it's 11 o'clock at night. We didn't know who we can call. But then we realized that we had sitting in our driveway a mitzvah tank, a motorhome that was donated to us, and we haven't had a chance yet. We were still waiting for some funds to get together in order to paint the outside and have it as a Chabad house on wheels that would go around the Canadian Rockies, helping people put on tefillin, provide kosher food. And we haven't decked it out yet to a mitzvah tank, so it still had some beds in there. It took about an hour and a half, and we were able to get the water to work and set it up, put some linen on the beds and stuff like that. And the mitzvah tank was able to do a mitzvah we not even attend. To be a couple was able to spend their honeymoon and not have to park something on the side of the road in their small car. And we were thrilled to be able to do that mitzvah. It was an honor and a pleasure. There was another Jewish couple that was affected by the fires that cut their trip to Jasper short and came back to the Bow Valley and spent Shabbat with us as well, where we had a minyan, we had Shabbos meals, and a tremendous, beautiful atmosphere. And, you know, it's hard to think of such a beautiful place like Jasper that is going to take years to rebuild and get back its beauty. But we're thankful that the other 3 of the 4 national parks are, were spared from the fire, and the smoke cleared up, and the travelers were able to continue their trip. As we pray and add to our tefillot, obviously thinking about our brothers and sisters in Israel first and foremost, but then we also think about the Jewish families that we know live in Jasper. There are a small number, and also in Yoho there's a small number. We're all part of one community, the Canadian Rockies, the Jewish community of the Canadian Rockies. You know, in our hearts we're thinking of that, and we hope that they'll be able to recover from the situation there and rebuild.
You have a personal knowledge of this more than most people might realize because you lived in Edmonton, right, as a Chabad Shaliach for I don't know how many years. So
we were in Edmonton for 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
So you must know that park yourself. Did you ever camp?
Correct. Oh, we've been there many, many, many times. There's a family in Jasper. I haven't got through to them yet, but years ago I gave a boy bar mitzvah lessons. We always love to travel to the Rockies, and we've been saying for years that there needs to be a Jewish presence in the Rockies. There needs to be a place to daven. There needs to be a place to get kosher, and it was always a dream. While we were in Edmonton, we've made Shabbatons 3 times where we brought the Edmonton Jewish community to Jasper and koshered a lodge with a bunch of cabins where the community was able to celebrate Shabbat together for a weekend. And there's a lot of fond memories, Jasper, and it's hard to think what it looks like now when we look at the pictures. it hurts. It hurts. It's not every day that the premier of Alberta gets up and starts crying on national television. We've had tragedies before, but when you're dealing with such a beautiful place, when you're dealing with a place where you come to the mountains, and you connect to God, you see the niflaot haborah, the wonders that God created, the amazing beauty that you have, and you think of the loss, fire. It's understandable why it's so painful. And God willing, in short time, they'll rebuild, and it'll be again a place where people can come and visit and see the beauty that Hashem created.
Remember the hit musical play Come From Away, depicting how the people in Gander, Newfoundland and Labrador suddenly hosted thousands of airplane passengers stranded after 9/11 in the wake of the Al-Qaeda attack on the United States in 2001, and international air travel was grounded? It sort of felt like that for Heidi Coleman, the president of Kamloops, BC's Jewish community, after she saw a bus deposit a group of 17 bewildered Jasper evacuees beside the local hockey arena and drive away. Coleman happened to be at the arena for a BC lottery event, and she noticed the shell-shocked group, mostly employees from an outfitting company that offers boat cruises and ice field excursions, but also several tourists who didn't speak English. Coleman swung into action, and she joins us now from Kamloops.
I was at this event Wednesday night for our Lotto Corporation, BC Lotto, BCLC it's called, and it was at the hockey arena, but we were just at the side room. It was a cocktail, and then everyone was going to the park. And I stuck around till the end talking to some people and some of the city councillors and just like eating the last fresh carrots and the dip and everything. And I look out the window and I see a bus pull up and a bunch of people get off with their suitcases. And I think what's going on? And so I go outside and I said, hi, who are you? And they said, oh, we're from Jasper. We're from Valemount. We were told our bus driver just let us off. And they said that he's going to come tomorrow morning at 7:30 and pick us up. I said, well, who's meeting you here? What hotel are you going to? And we said, we don't know. He just left us here. So I said, well, why don't you come in? It wasn't even smoky or hot, but it's too hot. But come in. We had water in there, and we gave them water. And then I called some of the city councillors that I had just been with, and I said, hi, 17 people just arrived here from Jasper through Valemount, and they seem to think they're sleeping here. And they were like, no, we had spoken to Alberta. We said, we have so many of our own evacuees from other small towns, which I knew because I was trying to get a hotel for one night, and it was hard to find. But when I spoke to the city council, she said to me, listen, we're going to have to figure something out because they're not supposed to be here. We specifically told Alberta, I don't know, city that we can't take their evacuees. So I said, okay, but they're here now. So I called my husband, Glenn, who works in the homeless community, and I said, we need 17 mattresses. And we ordered pizza for them that was going to come to it's a little side room in the hockey arena. And I said, well, they could just sleep here. It's not a big deal. We'll get the blankets. And so the guy from the arena came over and said, no, they can't sleep here. But I was trying to have a conversation like to the side so they weren't all hearing this.
What time of day was this? Like evening?
This was probably about 7 p.m.
Okay, so it was already after supper. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went over to them to talk to them. I said, I realized who they were. They were employees from the hotels. So the company Pursuit and Brewster are companies in Jasper. So they were evacuating their employees. And then because we were making all these phone calls back and forth, and I guess the city councilors were calling, about an hour later, the bus driver, Mike, pulls back up again. And he comes in and he says, I can take them now, that we've arranged a hotel somewhere, a bit on the outskirts of town. And I said to him, what happened? He says, listen, I've been driving all day. I was told to leave him here, but then I got another call. So we rerouted the pizza to the hotel, and back on the bus they went. And then they wrote the nicest thing on Facebook that someone found, saying that they had this stop in Kamloops, and everyone was so nice to them. So, because I had said, listen, I said to this guy, Greg, I'll put it on Facebook and we'll find them a place to sleep. I can take 4 at my house. And he said, well, let's just wait. We'll get the mattresses. And then Mike, the bus driver, showed back up. But it was very sad because they were very scared, and they were just like, they were going to sit outside in the heat. It was still a bit hot, but not terribly. And I could see that they were just a little bit nervous, like they were like following us. And then I was asking them a lot of questions, and they didn't seem to know anything. And they were just saying, no, they told us he's going to pick us up right here at 7 a.m. And they all had wheelie luggage.
It literally sounds like a mini come from away. You were finding these people stranded in Gander from, right? 9/11, and you're like, get them mattresses and whatever.
We use that word, come from away. I said, have you seen the play? Have you, but yeah, I just felt it was very touching. I came home and I just lay in my bed after. I didn't want to watch the news. It was just like really sad. We had these big cookies that were left over from the event that said BCLC on them, the British Columbia Lotto Corporation. And so they were all eating that. And because I didn't think, that's all we had because the food was being packed up. But then we ordered them pizza. But yeah, it was like a two hours of my life. And then I got a few calls, just to say, thank you so much from the city. Thank you so much for staying with them. And I said, look, of course, like it was
like the Florence Nightingale and like rescuing them.
Well, BCLC was giving out that night sunglasses, tchotchkes, things like that. And one of the things they were giving out was like picnic blankets. And so they had a box left. So they gave out all the blankets to the evacuees. So I said, okay, we'll get the mattresses. They weren't big. They were nice. And then the bus driver pulled back up Mike, and he came right.
Were they mad at him? Were they like, hey, dude, what did you do?
A little bit, I think they were. But I thought about that. Like he looked exhausted. And he said, I just got called to come and get them. And that I'm just following orders. No, he didn't say that like that way. I'm just doing what I'm told to do. And I'm very tired. I've been driving all day.
I mean, that was a really nice thing that you did. And
yeah.
Kol hakavod.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for joining me on the CJN Daily.
You're so welcome.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily. The CJN Daily is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman. Our executive producer is Michael Freeman. And our music is by Dov Beck-Levine. Thanks for listening.